1. I work for a non-profit organization. We own an office building and rent office spaces out to other non-profits at a very cheap rate. Though we currently have one for-profit tenant, the taxman. The offices have been a little crowded as we have increased staff size this past year. So how the building is set up, everyone entering has to come directly through my office to get anywhere else in the building. Rather annoying for me, but oh well. It is rather obvious upon entering my office which organization I work for. I have signs and tons of paraphernalia pertaining to my organization. Well, the taxman is rarely in his office, and this is his secondary location. So typically when his clients come in and see he is not there, they'll simply ask me to place a piece of paper on his desk for them, or some similar small task. This one client of the taxman, entitled Cow, comes in rather often, but being the entitled cow she is, she speaks down to me and gives me many tasks to do. For example, she once came in, discovered the taxman wasn't in his office, and started rambling off to me. I need you to give this to the taxman, tell him that I didn't know what to put in XX section, and I have another question about XX, so I need you to have him call me immediately. I politely responded, Ma'am, I don't work for the taxman. I work for the non-profit organization which owns this building. But if you would like to write down your notes for him, I would be happy to place a message on his desk for you. What an incompetent employee you are, she stated as she stormed off. This began happening rather frequently, or at least every other week. Each time I would remind her that I do not work for the taxman, and I would often note that I have no idea what she is talking about. Each time she would insult me and leave. The last time she came in, about 2 weeks ago, she walked right up to me and said, "What do you even do all day? Watch Netflix? Your job is boring." I politely as possible said, "No ma'am, I run a youth volunteer program, run a county-wide volunteer center, do all the accounting for the organization, serve as a property manager," and listed off my very extensive job description to her. She laughed and said, "Yeah, right. My daughter is about your age and she just sits at a desk all day watching Netflix. You can tell your boss whatever you want, but I know you don't do anything." What entitled cow, right? Well, today, about 30 minutes ago, guess who waltzes into my office? That's right, the oh-so-lovely entitled cow. I told her that the taxman is in, but he's currently meeting with someone else, and she should go knock to let him know she is there. She stared at me for a moment before finally leaving my office and walking back to the taxman's. 5 minutes later, she walked back into my office and said, "It sounds like he's meeting with somebody." "Yes, ma'am, that's what I just told you." "Well, I'm not knocking and letting him know I'm here. You're his receptionist. That's your job." "No, ma'am, I am not his receptionist, and as I have told you many times before, I do not work for his company. You can either wait back there until his meeting is over, or you can knock and let him know you are here. Either way, it doesn't affect me." "Are you kidding me? I'm here for a meeting with him, which was supposed to start 5 minutes ago." I ignored her and she walked out, only to pop her head in 2 seconds later and say, "Seriously, I'm not knocking." I said, "Okay," and she walked back to his office to wait. It's a small building and I can hear everything that happens in the hallways. So I can currently hear her sitting outside his office mumbling, "Seriously, taxman, finish your meeting. You're supposed to meet with me." Frick, your incompetent receptionist. Frick me, the incompetent receptionist of the taxman, who just watches Netflix all day, right? 2. So for background, I grew up in the hospitality industry with my parents, who to those behind the scenes shared the power of a general manager, although my dad was the one who holds that position, has for 10 years now. Seeing as some of my earliest memories are of hotel rooms, front desks, and the general drama that happens behind the scenes, you think I'd be immune, or at least more tolerant to bullshit, but that's a story for another day. As I said, I grew up in this business and helped out a lot, taking shifts occasionally and running errands for whichever of my parents were on shift, but I never actually got paid the same as the other employees. By that I mean, my parents paid me from their own pay, which is fine. I hardly did the same amount of work they did in the same amount of time, which meant I wasn't on the payroll. Therefore, I wasn't technically an employee. Remember that, one of the few pieces that will come out to play in my favor. Okay. I also have to mention that my parents have managed more than one hotel in my lifetime, and for the past several years the common thing is for them to live in the hotel they manage, given it's in a completely different state than their house. My house now, thank you. So they have their own room. I can access it when I'm visiting because when I'm there I pitch in and help out, which commonly requires me to have a master key. Yes, one that opens all the doors. They really don't look that much different from guest keys, except for the markings or when the housekeepers wear them on lanyards. And the regular guest keys don't work after noon, which is the time you must be checked out or you'll be charged for another day. One more piece to remember. There are 5 doors in total, but technically the second door is where guests can use the side door to access the parking lot and their rooms without going all the way from the lobby. It requires an active keycard to work from outside. Another piece. I don't tell anyone this, and typically only a few staff members are aware of who I am anyways, the manager's daughter, so it's not really obvious. On my last visit I was given a master key after the day I got there, and was told they'd call me if they needed my help. I'm typically an introvert and stay in my room playing video games and reading, sometimes wandering out to spend time with my parents. Wearing jeans and a gigantic tank top and flannel, nothing like what the clerks or employees should wear. I left my room with a book in hand, my phone and master key in my pockets, but you could really only see the outline of my phone, another piece to come into play. This is where the background truly ends and the story begins. I was going to head down to the lobby with my book and sit on the couches to read, to hang out with my mother on her shift. She's a bookworm too, so we tend to read in silence together. Then, as soon as my door closed, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I could feel a disturbance in the force. Lo and behold, from behind me I hear the sound of a wild Karen. "Excuse me!" My first thought was, oh boy. My second was, how fast can I annoy her? Yeah, I'm an introvert, but that doesn't mean I am uncomfortable with drama or people. I just prefer to hibernate in the comfort of my living space. Big difference. In fact, on occasion when confronted with, well, confrontation, I find I enjoy myself when I annoy the ever-living shit out of them. I mean, I didn't ask for you to bother me, so that's your problem. I digress. This lady is what I classify as your stereotypical Karen. Seems put together on the outside, but on the inside is just a shitstorm of entitlement and lack of empathy. I won't describe what she looks like, because then the people from the hotel would know exactly who she is. Anyways, I turned to face her, where I had been just about to step away from my room door, replying with, "You're excused," which I know for a fact tends to irk people, but to be fair, it's what one's supposed to say at one's dinner table in response. Yeah, we're not at a dinner table, but still. "You need to help me right now." My third thought is, now where have I heard that one before? Oh right, this is a Karen. No, I don't, I'm just trying to go to the lobby. "Oh no, you're not, you're going to help me." Okay, this is where I realized that I had 2 major options. A, get angry and lower myself to her level, or B, ride this out to the perfect I don't work here lady moment. While option A was tempting, I decided that I could hold off on reading for now. "Fine, what do you need help with?" "Well, you need to start doing your fucking job and bring my bags out of my car." Whoa, hold up. The hotel employees do not do that. We weren't that big of a building or business to warrant bellboys. And we had luggage carts and elevators for that particular reason. As far as I know, guests tend to understand that until now. Ha! Fine. You know what? I'll go along with it. But I head with Karen to her room, which was 4 floors down from mine. And she shoves this large suitcase, I'm talking everything but the kitchen sink large, into my hands, and carries this tiny bag instead. The suitcase does not have a handle, but when I reach for it, Karen snaps at me. "No, I said to carry it out." "No, you didn't." Karen gaped at me for a moment before replying with, "Yes, I did, and do your fucking job, and do not talk back to me, I am a guest." So Karen is striding ahead of me by a few paces while I'm somewhat struggling to carry this large suitcase. And by the time I get to the elevator, Karen is already standing beside it, where I set the bag down for a moment to catch my breath. Because damn, that was pretty much my exercise for the week. "Hurry up, or you're fired." I really could have broken the pretense right there, but I decided that at the side door is where I'll drop the bomb. Karen hops into the elevator, and by the time I'm able to pick up her suitcase, she's already heading down. So on the stairs, I simply push her suitcase down each flight, hoping that I'm smashing a few breakables in the process. Yes, I was petty. Don't care. Karen is already out the side door by the time I reach the bottom with her suitcase. She didn't even notice that it hit the bottom somewhat loudly. Before I pick it up, I check the time in my phone, 1:36 p.m. Karen was surely about to be charged for another day, or had been already. She hadn't been out her room long enough to have met the 12 noon deadline. Obviously. Therefore, her card would not work. Ah, karma. You show up just when I need you. So I walk over to the door with her suitcase in hand and open it, nearly throwing it out the door, and Karen screeches when I do. "You can't do that! I'm going to have your job for that, you useless piece of shit! Fucking bitch!" So, not really mad, I stare at Karen amidst her rage beginning to rise, when I don't start begging for forgiveness and simply say, "You can't really take what I don't have to begin with." What do you mean?" I take a small step back from the door, but I keep my body kinda leaned forwards with my eyes locked on hers, so she doesn't notice the moment. I would have called her lady in this next part if she hadn't cursed me and called me a bitch and useless. "I don't work here, Karen. Thanks for staying," I say in a falsely cheery voice before I slam the door shut with all my might. The electronic lock clicks into place, thus leaving her outside. Did I forget to mention that she still had things in her room? Well, yeah, she was charged for another day, and even told my mother about the rude bellboy, I'm a girl and present as one, WTF, locking her out. My mother tried to explain to her that since she wasn't checked out or out of her room after 12, then she would be charged for another day, and that her keycard was only programmed for the night she had paid for. Oh, and that we don't have bellboys. Karen eventually got her stuff, but still had to pay, and didn't get her security deposit back since she had apparently damaged the doorframe to her room. All in all, Bellboy 1 and Wild Karen 0. Thanks for listening. 3. It all started so innocently. All I wanted was to surprise my fiancé for Valentine's Day. He lives in the state of Georgia for college, and it's a 7-hour drive for me to get there, but this would be my last chance to see him before the wedding, 2 months away, and before he went overseas to Asia for several weeks. The plan was that my father and I would rent an Airbnb for the 3-night weekend to save money. I have stayed in Airbnb several times before, and it was always a seamless experience. But this wild Georgian woman, this stuck-up thief, this merciless, entitled jerk. Technically, there are 3 idiots in this story, 4 if you choose to count me, but one is far more of a butthole than the others, which will become clear as we go. So, after weeks of struggling with the app, booking rooms only to have the owner raise the rate by $250, cancelling on me when I refused, booking with people who never even looked at my request, I finally settled on 4 good rooms that were close to my fiancé's dorms, now with only 3 days until the trip. One had cats, I'm allergic, one was 420 friendly, also allergic. That left 2 options, so I chose the one closer to the dorms. Now that I only had 3 days left, the cancellation policies were pretty strict, but I was left with no choice. I booked the closer room with a woman I'll call Eily. Immediately, the app showed the room as unavailable. Disheartened that someone beat me to it, I booked the farther one with our idiot of honor, who I would honestly like to dox, but won't out of integrity. I'll call her Beach. Now, this is the only point I will give this swindler. The Airbnb app is misleading, and it's not really Beach's fault that this part happened. Even though my request to book had not been approved, the Airbnb showed Eily's home as unavailable because of my request to book. So 3 minutes later, I nervously checked the app to see if Beach had accepted my request. She had, but so had Eily. My stomach flipped, but I remained calm. It was a simple mistake, I told myself. Immediately, I mean within 2 minutes of realizing what I'd done, I messaged Beach, briefly explaining the mix-up. No reply. This stone-hearted devil. There is no way she didn't see what I said. In a panic, I called Airbnb, who explained to me that it was out of their hands since it was within Beach's reservation policy, that cancellations only give a refund of the clearing fee. Let me just pause a moment to say, what kind of BS is that? My grandmother rented Airbnbs for years. If someone isn't staying with you, they have no need to pay you, it's really that simple. She could easily rebook this room to someone else. Airbnbs said they would call Beach on my behalf. During the waiting period to hear back from them, I had somewhat of a breakdown. I hadn't been paid that week, and I didn't think I had enough money in my account to pay for both places. On top of that, all the stress I'd been under, planning my wedding, as fun as it was, had been getting to me. And now my entire budget for the chair rental I owed would be gone. All because of Beach. I slid down the wall into a fetal position in the corner and bawled my eyes out, begging God that Beach would give me mercy. A little dramatic, I understand. But I was home alone where no one would know I was losing it. Well, now everyone listening to this knows, but that's beside the point. The Airbnb agent called me back. He said Beach had flatly refused him. I could try to get Eily to see my side of things, but that was all that could be done. I messaged Eily my dilemma. She refused me too. But at least she gave me the dignity of a response, unlike this Beach lady. She said that the mistaken booking should be the one to cancel, not her. Which was a middle finger to me in a way, but I didn't want to stay at her apartment, so I didn't press the topic much harder. I respectfully messaged the elusive Beach one more time, asking for mercy. I tried to come at it as if I understood her side of things, as if she wanted to stick to her cancellation policy out of a matter of principle, and not because she was trying to use a loophole in Airbnb's system to steal a week's wage from an already broke girl that happened to suck at technology. Any guess what this middle-aged monster did? That's right, she ignored me. I messaged my agent to see if I had any other options. I was ignored by them as well. In fact, every single time I called this company during this dumpster fire of an experience, I had to start all over with a new agent, despite me asking for them by name. It was extremely frustrating. I filed a complaint to them for the confusing feature in the app, which I'm sure won't go anywhere. Airbnb offered me a measly $20 coupon. I was somewhat excited about this at first, since I had booked something with them for our honeymoon. But my gratefulness dissipated when I learned that I could only use it toward a new purchase. There is no way I am ever using Airbnb again after this. My genius of a grandma has offered to complain to the Better Business Bureau for me, since she is familiar with Airbnb policies. So there is a little hope. One major consolation for me was that my account did not end up going into overdraft. I had given my card info at the wedding dress alteration the day before, but they had not charged the card yet, so I was in the clear. That was my saving grace. The trip went well. Our room with Eily was everything we expected, except for a ton of animal hair on the couch I had to sleep on, and the broken bathroom door, and the time another guest took our key and we got locked out, and my father climbed up onto the balcony to get in and unlock it from the inside. My fiancé and I had such a wonderful 3 days together. I would say the hassle was worth it. As for our beloved Beach, I debated whether or not to cancel with her, just so I could stick it to her and make sure she couldn't book her room to someone else. But sadly, this isn't a revenge story. I was too desperate for the cash. I cancelled and took my pathetic $20 in shame. That idiot host, more of a parasite than a host, am I right, guys? Never did give me the dignity of a response. I was able to report her for this, but so far I see no consequence for her. She even has a superhost rating. She probably went on to sucker some other poor soul out of staying with her and make twice the profit. I cannot imagine doing something so soulless with a stranger for a 3-minute-long accidental booking. But maybe that makes me the idiot. 4. My local sports center is upgrading to an electronic system. Doors have locks on that you can open with a fob, the kind you might attach to your keys. So once you've checked in, or paid, either at the desk or on the new quick-serve machines in the main entrance, the doors to various areas will open up for you, provided you are eligible for entry. It's early days of this new system, and some people aren't used to it. Change is scary. The gym and spa suite and the swimming pool area are in separate areas, and both have their own changing rooms. However, there is a door and a long corridor that links the two, so that if you want to go to the gym, then for a swim, or go for a swim, then to the spa suite, sauna, etc., or some combination thereof, you can use this door to pass back and forth. I work out 5 days a week, and I'm very familiar with the new system already. I've seen plenty of people caught out, not able to get past the door to an area, and explained it to them. Such was the scene I came upon when, after my workout and on my way for a swim, I came across this woman in her bathing suit, trying to get through the door unsuccessfully. She was hesitant to go back into the gym and in her bathing suit to ask for assistance. And her other option, the doors next to her that would open, led to the main entrance, and I doubt she would want to walk through the cafe in her bathing suit. even less than through the gym. I saw the distress and explained to her that the door was now on a sensor, and that in future she just needed to bring her membership key fob with her to get through. But I let her through with mine as we were both going that way. She was grateful, and I thought nothing more of it. At least until our next interaction. After a quick chat with some of the lifeguards who I know, I jumped in and started doing my lengths, and the lady from my earlier encounter got into the same lane as me. It was a bit of a nuisance because it was the mid-speed lane and she was going far too slow for it, so I had to overtake her every 2 to 3 lengths, which often meant slowing down until an overtaking opportunity presented itself. At one point, she stopped at an end, and I saw her pointing at me and speaking to the lifeguards. But the lifeguard just shrugged and said something to her that she obviously didn't like, because for the remainder of the swim she had a face like she was chewing wasps. Eventually, I had done my swim and stopped to rest for a moment, to catch my breath before getting out of the pool. She had been stopped for several minutes by this point, just taking up space at the end of the lane, an obstacle for the rest of us to swim around. Once I stopped, she said, "Oh good, you can help me. I need you to move this so that I can get out." And she pointed to the line of floats that separate the different swimming lanes, in a long steel wire that runs through the length of the pool and is covered with plastic-colored floats. I told her I couldn't do that because A, it's not my place to do so, and B, it was very securely and tightly fastened to the wall. This was not some simple hook or latch system. She insisted that I help her because she couldn't get her hair wet, as she had an important appointment, which she didn't elaborate on, nor why that was suddenly my problem. This strange standoff and insistence that I help her went on for another few minutes, and after the second time of it circling around to the same words coming from her, I decided not to participate in the circle a third time, and simply dove under the barrier, swam toward the stairs, climbed out, and left her to her own conundrum. I went back to the gym to the changing rooms, got changed and headed up to leave, and there she was complaining to some very high-profile people, the sport facility manager who you never really see. I only know who he is from the few times I've booked the main hall to organize martial arts events. I'm a coach. And standing next to him were 2 local politicians. One who was the representative for the area the sports center was in, and the other was on the board for sports and recreation. They were obviously there on some official business, and she had spied them and gone to give them a piece of her mind. I could hear her as I walked towards the main doors. She was having a go at some rude employee, and I chuckled to myself, thinking some poor sod was going to get it in the neck by causing her to have reason to complain just when these 2 high-ranking officials were in. And the sport facility manager is looking completely flummoxed, and tells her that he has no one working by that description. Frustrated, she looks around the room, spots me and goes, "Him!" and points directly at me. I look at the 3 men, they look at me, and then we all look at her. She has a really smug, almost triumphant grin on her face. When the sports facility manager said to her, "He doesn't work here." Now I know in a lot of these "I don't work here" lady stories, the Karens of this world rarely accept at face value the first, second, or even 50th time they are told someone doesn't work there. But she didn't fight it at all, she just looked really puzzled. And then, after a few moments of confused thought, she said, "But he has a card to get through the doors." And that's when the facility manager had to explain to her the new system, and that everyone who has a membership card is able to get through the doors. When I went in today, one of the staff told me it couldn't have happened at a more opportune time, because the new system had been the idea of the politicians, and they were annoyed that the rollout hadn't gone smoothly, and that people were still queuing up and paying cash as a pay-as-you-go style, rather than paying for a month in advance and using the electronic system. As such, they hadn't gotten accurate or favorable data back from the system, and they had complained to the manager, who had them come down and was trying to explain to them that people found the new system difficult to understand, or intimidating, or were just being slow to adapt to change. Our misunderstanding underlined his own point so beautifully it couldn't have gone better if he had orchestrated it himself, and for them to be stood there next to him when it all went down, I bet he'll be telling that story for years to come. 5. Here is a story from my days working at a local airport. You see, when you arrive at the check-in desk at an airport, Most people seem to assume that the people working there are actually airline employees, but more often than not, they're working for a handling agency, which has in turn been contacted by airlines to handle check-in, baggage loading, and other practical tasks for the airline at that airport. Some airlines also run their own handling agency, and I worked for one of these when this story took place. It is often difficult for those who are not frequent travelers to easily identify based on work uniform, as the white shirt and dark blue or black trousers and jacket is nearly universal for handling staff, as well as also being common for many airline staff. Take the uniform of an airline captain, remove the stripes, the hat, and any wings from the uniform, and you could be forgiven for thinking that person also worked at the check-in area. Another thing worth noting is that staff are typically discouraged from answering questions specific to airlines that they do not work with, and to advise people asking those questions of where to go and who to ask in order to get proper answers. This was one such situation. The cast and companies for this story: Q, person wanting to ask questions, me as me. Airline A, the airline Q wants to ask a question about. Handling A, the handling agency and company responsible for Airline A. Airline B, the airline I worked at. When this happened, I had only trained at the airport for a couple of months, and was staffing the entrance of the queue system for Airline B. My work uniform did have some subtle hints to which company I worked for, but you could easily be forgiven for not noticing. A logo punched into my belt buckle, no color difference, only an indentation, and a lanyard sporting the color and logo of the airline, and along comes Q.
"Excuse me, I would like to ask a question about Airline A."
Then you should head over to Handling A. I point towards 3 people standing in front of Airline A's queue system, about 10 meters in front of us. They are the ones responsible for handling Airline A, and are therefore much better suited to answer questions about Airline A.
"But it's really just a quick question about Airline A."
Which is exactly why you should ask Handling A, as they're the ones who have the best knowledge about Airline A. Again, pointing to the same 3 people. Q then again argues that it's really just a quick question, and I repeat that he should ask Handling A. After having done this dance 4 times, Q seems to lose it, and goes off on a tirade of insults and profanities, telling me how stupid, ignorant, and incompetent I am, and finishes off with,
"What are you doing here anyways, seeing as you clearly don't know anything?"
I bring my left thumb under the lanyard, just below the shoulder, and lift the lanyard only slightly while stating in a very matter-of-fact manner, I work for Airline B. Q immediately goes silent, mouth slightly open. Then his face takes on a very bright hue of red. And I mean really bright red. It was almost like watching a cartoon character blushing. Then quickly and quietly, he turns and walks straight to the staff from Handling A. It all happened very quickly, but the story has stuck with me, and is a good source of entertainment to this day. And while I have since left the industry for other, better paid work, I still snicker at the thought of the bright red face. I have no doubt that he knew exactly how badly he messed up that day. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Idiots in the Wild, number 17. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use and sent in stories for use in this video. If you have a story yourself you'd like to send in for either an Idiots in the Wild, a Spinning Plates, or, well, I won't go through the list of stories. If you have a story you'd like to send in, even if it's something I don't do yet, it will probably find its way into a video in the future, send it along to kingofthecities@gmail.com. The email can be found in the description of this and most other videos, and also on the screen. And getting me through the editing and little breaks in recording today is Dr. Erin MacDonald. Dr. MacDonald is an astrophysicist. She actually consults on a number of television shows, including the new Star Trek Discovery. And if you do a search for her, you'll find that she has a very interesting YouTube channel where she does very nerdy and science-based recaps of Star Trek episodes. As we speak, I'm watching the new one she did on Star Trek Next Generation, Cause and Effect, Times Arrow, with a little bit of Futurama in there as well. And these videos can go about an hour, and they're very interesting and they're engaging, but it's also enough that I can have it on in the background just as background noise while I'm working, which is kind of essential for me, otherwise I obsess over every single thing. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.